right, today, as was stated, is Ascension Sunday. And this is a tough part of our faith to really understand. So today will involve no amusing stories or real-world examples. Today, we just need to take a few minutes to really understand what this day is really all about. That's the best use of our time today. Because after all, the Ascension is in the Creed. Therefore, it's important enough to at least partially define our faith. So, the first reading that we heard today was pretty much an account of what happened from the perspective of the apostles. Jesus told them not to leave Jerusalem, that the Holy Spirit would come down to them, and he ended with the statement that none of them would ever know the future or the way that God would continue to be present in the world. They'll have their mission, true enough, but they had to go about that mission with faith that it's worthwhile. They didn't get to know the results or the conclusion of that mission beforehand. That would be cheating. Another good thing that we have to remember right now is all of this is happening after Jesus' resurrection from the dead. Okay? Which means the disciples, they were not feeling hopeless right now. They felt hopeless after he died on the cross. They thought he was dead and staying in there. But then Jesus was resurrected on the third day and visited them and talked to them. And so at this point, the disciples are not feeling hopeless, but they're pretty confused. They don't really understand what's going on. They don't know what's going to happen next. They're unsure of the future. So then, Jesus returns to heaven with a couple of angels to clearly tell the apostles that he's gone back to the Father. So what is Ascension Sunday all about? It is Jesus returning to the Father after his resurrection because he couldn't hang out with the apostles forever. He couldn't do it forever. There had to come a point where Jesus lets them carry on in his name on their own. Okay. That is the simplest way to understand Ascension Sunday. Jesus was saying goodbye to the apostles with love for their own sake, for their own good. Now, there is one more thing that we should understand about the Ascension. I wouldn't consider this basic, but it might be the most important detail of all when it comes to the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. In the gospel, Jesus ascends to heaven, and then, and I quote from the Gospel of Luke, they did him homage, and they returned to Jerusalem with great joy. And they were continually in the temple praising God. Why? Why were the apostles so happy? Because after all, Jesus was saying goodbye for the last time. I mean, wouldn't they be sad? Wouldn't that be bittersweet at the very least? That is certainly what common sense would tell us, because goodbyes are always sad. We're sad at funerals because we have lost someone. Even though that we know that they're safe and that Jesus is with them and they're looking down upon us and that we shall see them one day in heaven, we're still sad because we have lost someone as we knew them. When people move away, when they get too busy to spend time with us, we are sad because we miss the people that are in our lives. So what makes the apostles so different in this gospel reading? Why are they rejoicing at the end of the reading? Well, this is just one of those times where you really need to understand that Jesus is not an ordinary person. This is why I say it's not a basic lesson. He was also fully God, fully divine. So when Jesus ascended to the Father, he didn't leave us behind like other people do. Because all of us have limitations, all of us. But those limitations don't apply in the same way to Jesus. Although Jesus went back to heaven, he also remains with us in a new way. He is present with us in the bread and the wine on the altar. He is there when 2 or 3 of us are gathered in his name. He makes intercession for us to the Father, which is fancy church talk for saying he hears our prayers. A few weeks ago, I said that being Christian isn't about information. It's an encounter with Christ. And I was very delighted that Bishop Haynes said the exact same thing at the confirmation mass. It's always good for the bishop to back you up every once in a while. For me, that's a rare treat. We need to encounter Christ. We need to feel him there in our moments of prayer and our moments of action. We need to recognize him not just in the Eucharist, but in the poor and the suffering, in the order of the natural world. He is there. There is no containing the Spirit of Christ. He wants us to find him, know him, and encounter him. The apostles were joyful because after the ascension, they realized that Jesus never really left the Father and would never truly leave them. He is with us always, albeit in a new way. Jesus no longer walks the earth as we do. That much is true. You're not going to run into Jesus at the Quick Trip after Mass. I don't think. If you do, tell him I say hi. That part of Jesus' life is over. However, we haven't lost him the way we lose our dead. We mourn for our dead, and we remind ourselves that we shall one day see them again in heaven. We don't mourn for Jesus because he's with us right now. He is the firstborn of the dead, and therefore he is actively present in our lives always. I know that's a hard thing to get in your head. This is advanced stuff, okay? But hopefully it'll sink in, either today or some point in the future when you're ready. Jesus is not an ordinary person. He is truly the Son of God, and for that reason, he will always be with us, especially when we need him the most. And so, just as for us, as for the apostles, that is indeed cause for great rejoicing.